Childhood trauma is the result of an event or a series of events which cause a child to feel helpless and pushed beyond their ability to cope. Even when they have experienced trauma, children can show strength, courage and growth. There are many ways schools can help children to be resilient in times of adversity.
Generally speaking, there's two different types of trauma. So there's your single incident trauma or your simple trauma, and those are the sort of experiences that occur out of the blue. Being involved in a car accident or being exposed to a natural disaster or a man-made disaster. Then there's also your complex traumas, and they occur repeatedly over time and in some ways are more damaging to the child. They include things like child abuse and neglect, witnessing domestic violence or being exposed to war and conflict. Kids respond to trauma differently. So an incident that might be traumatic for one child isn't necessarily traumatic for another. And generally there's 4 different things that impact on whether a child will be traumatised by an event. Those are things to do with the child, things to do with their family, things to do with their community, and things to do with the nature of the event. Things like age, the child's personality, their ability to cope and solve problems, the family's own response to the traumatic event. If the family is very distressed, they might not be there to support the child. Is the child well engaged with the school and with other supports within the community? How extreme the event was? Did the child think that they were going to die, or did they think somebody else around them was going to die? Interpersonal events, those events that happen between people that are supposed to be there to support the child, are more damaging to children. And again, these go back to events such as child abuse and neglect and witnessing domestic violence. When a kid's been traumatised, we can see a range of different behaviours, and this really comes out of kids being so disrupted emotionally and not really knowing how to cope with what's going on for them. Some of the things that we might see in the classroom might include difficulties in concentration, difficulties in memory, not being able to organise themselves, and difficulties in completing their work. Some children just withdraw. They don't want to engage with their friends, they don't seem to enjoy the things that they used to enjoy, and they just seem to shut down. It can be helpful if a teacher can stop and think about what might be causing those difficulties. Then we have cases where kids have gone through disasters, but everybody else in their classroom has been through the same disaster. Some kids have a lot of difficulty feeling safe in the classroom, but by encouraging or enhancing the relationship that a child has with a teacher, this can really help them to feel safe in the classroom and engage educationally. Sometimes kids might come to teachers and want to talk about their experience of trauma, and that's okay. Teachers need to give children the message that they're a safe person to talk to, but they also need to be mindful of protecting the other kids in the classroom from hearing the traumatic experience that this child's gone through. It's really important for teachers to notice when kids need extra support and to be aware of and follow the school's referral procedures. After a traumatic event, some kids feel like the world's not really a safe place for them anymore. So returning to school can actually help them to move past that feeling, returning to that environment where they're supported and it's part of the normal routines and predictability of life is a protective factor for kids. Schools need to be proactive in thinking about how they're going to respond to different types of trauma. By having policies and procedures in place and knowing where schools are going to go to get external help and support is a really important way that schools can support kids who have experienced trauma. Working with kids who've experienced trauma can be really challenging work for teachers, so it's really important that they're mindful of their own health and well-being and they get support when they need it. When schools can support kids to stay engaged in education, it can really help them across the rest of their life. They've got better outcomes in terms of their mental health, their relationships, and their emotional well-being. Schools and families are the 2 most important parts of a kid's life. So when these come together to work in the best interests of the child, this brings about better outcomes for kids. Sometimes when a family's had a traumatic experience, they need to access services and navigate their way through complex systems. Schools can be safe and supportive in helping families to do this.
Children can often show resilience following traumatic experiences, particularly when they receive support from their friends, family, school staff and other adults around them. Kids Matter helps support children and their families who have experienced trauma. by assisting schools to create environments where children feel valued and supported, are taught skills to understand, express and manage their emotions, and are able to seek help when times are tough.